Hey guys, it's Allison. So today's video is going to be all of my 5-star rating books, and this is going to be my book recommendations to you. These are definitely the books that I would recommend to other people. To tell you guys a little bit about my reading journey, I started August 2022 and now it's February 2023. It's been about 7 months since then, and I have 10 books that I have rated 5 stars plus a series that I would recommend to you guys. So I'm going to show you guys from beginning to most recent books. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, comment down below any videos you want me to do next, subscribe down below if you're new to my channel, turn on post notifications to get an update every time I post a new video. I read this book because the movie was coming out and I was like, I want to read the book first. I had a feeling that the book was going to be way better than the movie, and I know a lot of people say that books are better than movies, but I know some movies that are better than the books. The first book is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. Let me tell you, I could read this over and over again. The movie did not do this book justice, I believe, but yeah, my first 5-star read is a story of love that won't let go no matter what. California's gold country, 1850, a time when men sold their souls for a bag of gold and women sold their bodies for a place to sleep. Angel expects nothing from men but betrayal. Sold into prostitution as a child, she survives by keeping her hatred alive, and what she hates most are the men who use her, leaving her empty and dead inside. Then she meets Michael Hosea, a man who seeks his father's heart and everything. Michael obeys God's call to marry Angel and to love her unconditionally. Slowly, day by day, he defies Angel's every bitter expectation. Despite her resistance, her frozen heart begins to thaw. But when her unexpected softening from overwhelming feelings of unworthiness and fear, and so Angel runs back to the darkness, away from her husband's pursuing love. Terrified of the truth she no longer can deny, her final healing must come from the one who loves her even more than Michael does, the one who will never let her go. Powerful retelling of the story of Gomer and Hosea, Redeeming Love is a life-changing story of God's unconditional, redemptive, and all-consuming love. The only thing that got me mad about the book was obviously that she kept going back to prostitution after the fact she was with Michael. I don't know how many times she went back to old life, but I get why she did, because she was so used to that life because she grew up in prostitution. One of her family members or someone like her mother knew sold her into prostitution, so she knew. Like, the fact that she kept going back, but Michael kept going at it, like going to go get her back, but then at one point he just like kind of stopped. She had to learn her way back to him. But it also shows how God loves us even if we're like all messed up inside, you know? I want to read more books from this author, Francine Rivers. I actually do have a book called The Masterpiece, and it sounded really interesting, so hopefully I'll be getting to that this year. But that's the first book. So going into my actual reading journey, this was the second book I had picked up to read, and this is called The Stand-In by Lily Chu. Let me tell you, I did not expect anything from this book. This is not the typical type of book of like switching spots. It was one girl trying to be another girl to help her out, which was interesting to me. The love story in this was like so cute, so adorable. The ending had me shocked. I did not expect the ending to occur that way. I had a little connection towards this book just because Asian American. So I'm gonna just read you the synopsis. So it says, Gracie Reed is doing just fine. Sure, she was fired by her overly friendly boss, and no, she still hasn't gotten her mother into the nursing home of their dreams. But she's healthy, she's somewhat happy, and she's mostly holding it all together. But when a mysterious SUV pulls up beside her, revealing Chinese cinema's golden couple Wei Fang Li and Sam Yao, Gracie's world is turned on its head. The famous actress has a proposition due to their uncanny resemblance. Fang Li wants Gracie to be her stand-in. The catch? Gracie will have to be escorted by Sam, the most attractive and infiltrating man Gracie's ever met. If it means getting the money she needs for her mother, Gracie's in. When Gracie moves into a world of luxury she never knew existed. But resisting Sam and playing the role of an elegant movie star proves more difficult than she ever imagined, especially when she learns the real reason Fang Li so desperately needs her help. In the end, all the determination in the world won't be able to help Gracie keep up their elaborate ruse without losing herself and her heart. But yeah, this was one of Target's book club reads, so that's why I picked it up, and also like the cover just seemed like super interesting. So the next book that I'm going to show you guys is like a book talk book, I guess you could say. A lot of people were talking about this when this book came out, and how the guy in this book was just unmatched to any guy. And this is The Spanish Love Deception, and this is a story about Catalina Martin and Aaron Blackford. And this book was a slow burn read. I liked it. It didn't get like, this book did not get steamy until like the very end. The concept of this book was just so interesting. This is by Elena Armas, if you never read this book and if you never heard this book. This is one romance book that I would really recommend. It says, pretending to be in love never felt better. So it says, a wedding in Spain, an infiltrating man 3 days to convince her family she's actually in love. Catalina Martin desperately needs a date to her sister's wedding, especially since her little white lie about her American boyfriend has spiraled out of control. Now everyone she knows, including her ex and his fiance, will be there and eager to meet him. She has only 4 weeks to find someone willing to cross the Atlantic and aid her in her deception. New York to Spain is no short flight, and her vacuous family won't be easy to fool. Enter Aaron Blackford, her tall, handsome, condescending colleague who surprisingly offers to step in. She'd rather refuse. Never has there been a more aggravating, blood-boiling, and insufferable man. But Catalina is desperate, and as the wedding draws nearer, Aaron looks like her best option, and she begins to realize she might not be as terrible in the real world as he is at the office. This book was a thick book at 435 pages, but let me tell you, this is definitely worth it. There's a second book called The American Roommate Experiment. I think I gave that like a 4.5 rating. If you have not read this book, read it because it's amazing. Next is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, and I had picked this up, I guess, because it was like a summerish kind of read. The back just seemed interesting. I like the dual perspectives of the book, like the past to the present. I can't wait until the new book comes out. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Meet Me at the Lake or something like that. It's coming out sometime this year. It says 6 summers to fall in love, 1 moment to fall apart, a weekend to get it right. They say you never go home again, and for Persephone Fraser, ever since she made the biggest mistake of her life a decade ago that has felt too true. Instead of spending glittering summers on the lakeshore of her childhood, she stays home in a stylish apartment in the city, keeping everyone a safe distance from her heart. Until she receives a call that sends her racing back to Barry's Bay and into the orbit of Sam Florrick, the man she never thought she would have to live without. For 6 summers, through hazy afternoons on the water and warm summer nights, working in his family's restaurant, Percy and Sam has been inseparable. Eventually, that friendship turned into something more before it fell spectacularly apart. When Percy returns to the lake for Sam's mother's funeral, their connection is as undeniable as it has ever been. Until Percy can confront the decision she's made, they'll never know whether their love is bigger than the biggest mistake of their past. Told over the course of 6 years, in 1 weekend, Every Summer After is a gorgeous, nostalgic look at love and the people and choices that mark us forever. This is definitely something to read. I feel like this is like something that could happen in like real life. So this book was my second thriller/suspense book that I had read back then. The first book was The Silent Patient, and The Silent Patient I gave 4.5. The reason I took off stars from that was because I knew what was gonna happen at the end, and like, I don't know, I felt like it like lacked something, but I don't know what it was. The book that I gave a 5-star read to was The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, and I know she created the book Then She Was Gone, but I have not read that book. A lot of people recommend that book to me. I gotta read that at some point. I also recommended this book to one of my coworkers, and she actually just finished reading it, and she said she gave it like a 3.5 to 4 star, and she actually passed it on to one of our coworkers. I'm guessing like it was a really good read for her that she actually told someone about it. Loved the 3 storylines mixed together. It was the main character's point of view, a back then point of view, and then like one of her relatives' point of view, and it was like just amazing. I read this book in 1 day. It was such an easy read. It has 339 pages. This book was super interesting. It kept me hooked. Even though this book did leave me in kind of like a cliffhanger, I think it was fine. Cliffhanger was not really a cliffhanger. It was just like something you're like, oh, like what would happen next kind of thing. Soon after her birthday, Libby Jones returns home from work to find the letter she has been waiting for 25 years. She rips it open, and with one driving thought, I am finally going to know who I am. She learns not only the identity of her birth parents, but also that she is the sole inheritor of the abandoned mansion on the banks of the Thames. Everything in Libby's life is about to change, but when she can't possibly know is that others have been waiting for this day as well. She is on a collision course to meet them. In The Family Upstairs, the master of the bone-chilling suspense brings us the can't look away story of 3 entangled families living in a house with darkest of secrets. I actually didn't expect the story to go this way, honestly, because it's called The Family Upstairs, but like, I don't know why it was called The Family Upstairs. But besides that point, this book actually kept me on my toes. It kept me wanting to read more. So definitely a book to pick up. This was my first ever Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I had picked up. It's called Maybe in Another Life. I was going to pick up The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo when I picked up this book. I ended up choosing this book to go with, and this was definitely a good choice to pick up. I don't know, I still haven't picked up that book, but I do really want to pick up that book at one point. This book, I read in one day too. Read in a day. Like, I don't know, this book just kept going. I just wanted to finish it. It had a dual perspective. It had if she chose one life over the other life, so it had like the 2 lives, like if she chose this life or that life. So it like went through the both lives at the same time, which was super interesting. Comment down below if I should get The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because a lot of people recommend it, but then I don't know, at the same time, like, I don't know if I haven't read a historical fiction before, so maybe that's something I should get into. Comment down below how you rated that book. At the age of 25, Hannah Martin still has no idea what she wants to do with her life. She has lived in 6 different cities and has held countless meaningless jobs since college, but on the heels of disastrous breakup, she has finally returned to her hometown of Los Angeles. To celebrate her first night back, her best friend Gabby takes Hannah out to a bar where she bumps her high school boyfriend Ethan. It just passed the night when Gabby asks Hannah if she's ready to go. Ethan quickly offers to give her a ride later if she wants to stay. Hannah hesitates. What happens if she leaves with Gabby, and what happens if she leaves with Ethan? In concurrent storylines, Hannah lives out the effects of each decision. Quickly, these parallel universes developed into surprisingly different stories with far-reaching consequences for Hannah and the people around her, raising questions including, is anything meant to be? How much in our lives is determined by chance? And perhaps most compellingly, is there such a thing as a soulmate? Hannah believes there is, and in both worlds she believes she's found him. So going along with first books of like authors that were like we talked about was Colleen Hoover, and this was the first book I actually picked up. It was Verity. I chose this one out of like all her love stories just because this was kind of had like a thrillerish vibe to it. A love story intertwined with it. At the time, not a lot of people talked about it, so I decided to pick this one up because a lot of people talked about It Ends With Us and all that stuff. And I decided not to pick up that book just because it was talked about so much. This book really... Oh, I read this book in a day too. If that doesn't tell you how good Taylor Jenkins Reid and Colleen Hoover's books are, I don't know what does. It kept me on my toes. I literally did not want to let go of this book. This was the first time I ever read in a car. And usually when I use my phones, I read in the car. I am nauseous, but I was able to read this book. And I was holding this everywhere. I was walking down the stairs reading this. Like, I could not let go of this book. I am not exaggerating when I say I was walking down the stairs reading this book. Like, if you ask my brother, I was walking down those stairs reading the book. Like, it was very captivating. And the thing that day, we got stuck in traffic, so I ended up finishing the book in the traffic. It says, Lowen Ashley is a struggling writer on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts a job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home, ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. Page after page of bone-chilling admissions, including Verity's recollection of the night her family was forever altered. Lowen decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents could devastate the already grieving father. As Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth as horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue loving her. Let me tell you, this book was creepy at the end. So I don't know if you guys are team letter or team manuscript. I'm like definitely confused because after Colleen Hoover came out with the gold edition, like the gold book, and added chapters into the book, it like got me even more confused than I already was. Definitely a book to read from Colleen Hoover. You guys will start seeing a trend that the 5-star rating books that I have read in a day. So this book I also read in a day. Let me tell you, this book is the first book. This is my #1 favorite book. Like, this is the top of the top. Like, I don't think any other book can knock this off the #1 spot. It's Archer's Voice from Mia Sheridan. I remember picking up this book in Barnes & Noble's and I was like, I'm going to give this book a shot. I don't think I had heard anyone really talk about this book at the time when I did read this book, and I read the back of it and I was like, even though it did not give much in the back, I was like, I definitely have to get this book. I felt like this story was so pure, and like the way they communicated, like their relationship, it was like a love at first sight when they first met. I have so much to say that I don't know what to say. You know what I mean? He said that Spanish Love Deception was like one of my top favorite romances. This tops that. It's at 370 something pages, and this was the first book I ever tagged. The way they talked to each other, or like they spoke about each other, was like so adorable. If you're planning to read this now. Go to Barnes & Noble, go on Amazon, go on whatever website you get your books and get this book. If you don't know what this book is about and you just heard my rambling, I wanted to lose myself in the small town of Pelion, Maine, to forget everything I had left behind. The sound of rain, the blood, the coldness of a gun against my skin. For 6 months, each breath has been a reminder that I survived and my dad didn't. I'm almost safe again, but the moment I met Archer Hale, my entire world tilts on its axis, and it never rights itself again. Until I trespass into his strange, silent, and isolated world, Archer communicates with no one. Yet in his whiskey-colored eyes, something intangible happens between us. There's so much more to him than just his beauty, his presence, or the ways his hands communicate with me, on me. But this town is mirrored in secrets and betrayals, and Archer is the explosive center of it all. There's so much passion, so much hurt, but it's in Archer's silence that we might just find what we need to heal and to live. I'm just gonna leave it. The next book is a thriller book. This was actually the first thriller book that I gave a 5-star besides The Family Upstairs. This was an actual like thriller suspense book, compared to The Family Upstairs is like suspenseful but not like thrillerish, like scary vibes, but this had like crime show vibes, you know. It is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. I didn't really hear anybody talk about this one either. This is a book I would recommend to anyone to read as a thriller book. I also read this book in a day and it kept me captivated, it kept me hooked. The very end, even though I expected the ending, like I knew who it was, I still really enjoyed this book of how they like this book together. And another book of hers, and I think this was her first book, I believe. Karen Slaughter commented, and it says, a smart edge of your seat story with a plot twist that you'll never see coming. And Karen Slaughter is the author that I believe wrote pieces of her, and I actually do have that book in my TBR list that I have to read. So I'm going to read you guys the synopsis, and it says, when Chloe Davis was 12, 6 teenage girls went missing in her small Louisiana town. At the end of summer, her own father had confessed to the crimes and was put away for life, leaving Chloe and the rest of her family to grapple with the truth and try to move forward while dealing with the aftermath. 20 years later, Chloe's a psychologist in Baton Rouge and getting ready for her wedding. While she finally has a fragile grasp on the happiness she worked so hard to achieve, she sometimes feels as out of control of her own life as the troubled teens who are her patients. When a local teenage girl goes missing and then another, that terrifying summer comes crashing back. Is she paranoid, seeing parallels from her past that aren't actually there, or for the second time in her life is Chloe about to unmask a killer? From debut author Stacey Willingham comes a masterfully done lyrical thriller certain to be the launch of an amazing career. Flicker in the Dark is eerily compelling to the very last page. It is her debut, so this is her first book. So when she does come out with a new book, you know I'm going to get it. The series that I was talking about that I gave a 5-star rating towards was The Inheritance Games. If you guys don't know my thoughts about The Inheritance Games, I will link the video up below because I did a whole vlog about it. It's basically about a girl that inherits all these billions of dollars from this random guy that she didn't even know. He disinherits his whole entire family. She has to live in this mansion with the family for like a year to be able to inherit the money. So these books have like mystery, love, triangles intertwined with it. A lot of riddles, games. If you guys know any other recommendations to books that are similar to this style of writing and like riddles and stuff like that, let me know. That's all I have to say about the series because I have a whole entire video about it. So you could just watch that if you want to know my thoughts about it. But obviously, you know, this is good if I rated the whole entire series a 5-star read. The last book on my list is a book by Tessa Bailey, and this is Love Her or Lose Her. This is also a book I did not hear anyone talk about. I have heard people talk about her other books. I don't remember the other book, but you know, going with the theme of stuff, like I don't really go with the most popular of books that people talk about. I go with other books that interest me. I picked this up. I recently read this a few weeks ago, and this was definitely a book to read. This is not your typical romance. This was the perfect couple that turned into a couple that didn't even speak to each other anymore. They had to try to fix their relationship. They were on the bound of divorce. He literally left him and they had to work together, go to a therapist or whatever. But the therapist was interesting because it wasn't your typical therapist or like psychologist that you would go to. Like, this was like a hippie guy like that they went to that helped them. I think a lot of people like on Goodreads, I'm not sure of the ratings, but I know I read a rating. They didn't really like this book, but I gave this a 5-star read. I liked how they showed the ups and downs in their relationship and how sexual attraction at some point doesn't satisfy a relationship. You have to have other things that helps you have a long-lasting relationship with your partner. I liked how they learned a lot about love languages, and love languages is a really big thing. If you guys don't know what love languages is, I really recommend you to take the test of love languages. I'll link the link down below. I don't know if you guys are still here, but I would really recommend you guys to do that and then do it with a partner if you have a partner, and let them do it, because you'll see how they work. I'm gonna show you guys the 5 love languages on the side. It shows you what they really appreciate and what they don't really need, you know what I mean? Like, even though we do all need those 5 love languages, is like their top priority. So yeah, that was all of my 5-star rating books so far of my reading journey. It hasn't even been a year of my reading journey, so let's see what is to come. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.